Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'm Evelyn, and I'm the Director of the London office and co-founder of Signature Recruitment. Firstly, just wanted to mention International Women's Day yesterday, which marks a call to action to accelerate women's equality. As a female-founded organization, this is close to our hearts, and it's great to see that so many organizations working towards breaking the bias with us. Today, I will be handing you over to Abigail and Victoria, who between them have 11 years experience working within the recruitment sector, specializing in education, construction, professional services, and FMCG sectors. After speaking with many of their clients and finding that there's actually some similarities in regards to frustrations they find when sourcing for candidates, they have put together that 6 top tips in how to secure the best candidates in a vacancy-rich market. There will be an opportunity for any questions throughout, so feel free to put any questions in the bottom in the chat box. And on this note, I will hand you over to Victoria.
Thanks, Eve. Morning, everybody. So today we're going to be looking at some practical tips on how to secure the talent that you want in the current market. Using real examples from some of our clients, we can show you how to learn from their mistakes, but more importantly, how to learn from the things that have gone well too. We're going to cover planning. We're going to look at the importance of speed and where you can save time, some deal breakers to consider, knowing your unique selling point and what to look out for with your competition. But before we go into the detail of these tips, it's worth looking at the current market conditions, as if you've been recruiting for any vacancies in your organization over the past few months, I'm sure you will have felt some changes. So we've got 2 things going on right now: more jobs and less people applying. The UK has had a record number of job vacancies, but there's a much lower rate of candidates unemployed or looking for new job opportunities. This graph and findings from the Office for National Statistics shows us that the number of unemployed people per vacancy fell to 1.2 in October last year, which is the lowest on record. So essentially, for every role you want to fill, there's only one person looking to fill it. This drive has been partly due to the increase in vacancies available. So according to the latest jobs outlook from the REC, job vacancies in the UK continue to break records, with an average of 1.25 million vacancies across October to December last year, which is 109% higher than the year earlier. But also the much lower number of people available per vacancy is also due to the reduction in people actively looking for work. So let's have a quick look at where they are and what are they doing instead. Firstly, lower migration. According to the Institute for Employment Studies, between 1/4 and 1/3 of labour shortages in the UK can be explained by lower migration and the reduced availability of overseas workers. Headlines at the end of last year had been dominated by worker shortages in areas such as HGV drivers, but the new data shows that now the whole economy is being affected by this lack of workers. Another factor is that a lot of young people are staying in education instead of entering the labour market, or people are returning to education to study a new subject or complete a master's. During the pandemic, for many, it felt pointless to look for work. So many have returned to education with the hope that prospects will be better when they have finished their studies in the next year or 2. And lifestyle choices in response to the pandemic have also impacted the labour market. I think we'll all agree that never has work-life balance been more talked about, and many of those nearing retirement took the opportunity to retire early, which again will create even more vacancies and fewer job seekers. So with this, all of this in mind, what can we do to help ourselves? So the first step is to plan the process. So as with any project, planning is the key to a smooth operation and positive outcome. Now, I know that for most of you, this will seem like an obvious place to start. However, I recently had a client who needed a temporary candidate to start with work with them the following week, but due to the nature of the role, an interview was necessary. The role had to start on the Monday so that the temp could have a day's handover with somebody who's going to be leaving the team. The client had put time in their calendar to interview on the Thursday, and then they were able to make a decision and an offer on the Friday, ready for that candidate to start work the following Monday. But the part that they hadn't planned for or considered was that they were actually on annual leave at the first part of that week, so hadn't allowed any time to review the CVs and book the interviews. This ended up costing them, by delaying the whole process by 24 hours, which I know might not seem like a long time, but it meant that that new starter missed out on that day's handover. Abby, have you had similar experience of this in London?
Yeah, actually, Vic. So another recent example of where maybe an oversight in the planning meant losing a front runner candidate was with a candidate that had been verbally offered a role, but as there was a delay in sending out the official job offer and the confirmations, the candidate actually accepted another opportunity with another company. So the hiring manager at the time hadn't considered really the turnaround time that was needed by HR to process and send the job offer, which sadly kind of ultimately meant losing out on the preferred candidate on that occasion.
Similar situations.
Yeah.
Good news is this can be easily fixed. So starting with how to do it. So with the recruitment process, we'd always recommend starting with the end in mind and work backwards. So think about, when do you need the role to start? Could you wait for somebody on a month's notice, or is there an urgent need? This is going to dictate how quickly you need to review the CVs and book the interviews. Think also about who's going to be involved in the recruitment process, and if anyone has any holidays coming up, who's going to be reviewing CVs and providing feedback, who will be involved in the interviews and giving feedback, and also who has final sign off or sends contracts out, and what information do they need and by when. Agreeing all of this at the beginning will allow for a smooth and efficient process from start to end. This might sound like common sense. However, as we've seen, it's the little details that can make the difference. So taking a step back to consider every step of the process and everyone involved from start to finish will stop you from missing out on talent for the wrong reasons. Consider also the practicalities of IT setup and desk space as well. A lot of our clients are finding setting up ITs taking longer than in the past because there's more involved and more they need to do. So make sure you speak with IT, let them know that you are recruiting and expecting a new starter, and checking what information they will need from you to avoid any delays. I think now we're at nearly 90% of the candidates that we've placed so far this year have had their start date delayed due to waiting for IT departments to complete new starter setup. So getting ahead of anything that could delay someone starting is going to be vital. And of course, there's the benefits to planning the process as well. A well-planned process with clear timescales, deadlines, and responsibilities will allow for a quicker turnaround, which reduces delays in feedback and next steps with your candidates. This is going to give your candidates a better experience of the recruitment process and ultimately a greater first impression of your organization as a whole. And in such a competitive market, this could be the difference between a candidate you want accepting or declining your offer. Remember that as much as you're making decisions about candidates, they're definitely making them about you too. So now more than ever, it's important to think about how you as a brand are perceived. I know Amazon, for example, take this point really seriously, and they have it written into their contracts with any agencies working with them that every single applicant must have feedback, whether successful or not, as they know that every person they interact with could be a potential customer of theirs. You're also going to be far more likely to fill the role first time around, so you can avoid the pain of getting to offer stage, losing a candidate, and then having to start all over again from scratch, which I'm sure you'll know can be both costly and disruptive to the team as well. So that's the planning part to think about. Next, it's the importance of the need for speed. So good candidates are likely to have multiple job applications. So keeping the time from when they apply to when they get CV feedback or interview feedback or that job offer will reduce the risk of you losing them to another company who could get back to them sooner. And in the world of recruitment, 24 hours can be a really long time, and that could mean the difference between your offer being accepted or rejected. So it's really important that you don't delay. Abby, I know you mentioned when we were talking earlier that you've seen this with one of your clients recently.
Yeah, okay, cool. I can give like another example really. So I recently had an excellent candidate who had a 2-stage interview in which my client was ready to make the offer, and last minute they actually decided that they wanted the candidate just to meet another colleague as they'd be working closely with them in the team. However, the colleague was off on annual leave for 2 days, which 2 days doesn't sound very much, but in that short gap, I advised the candidate had like another process to the client with another company, so they might miss out. But those 2 days, within those 2 days in waiting, the candidate was actually snapped up and went to the other company.
Gosh, I'm really feeling it.
Yeah.
There's definitely some really easy ways though that we recommend you can speed up the process. So sticking to the timescales and deadlines that you set in that original planning stage at the beginning of the process will definitely help. As Abby's just mentioned, a last minute change of plan can have a huge impact and not always for the better. It's definitely not all time wasted and lost candidates though. I'm working at the moment with a hiring manager who always sets deadlines for every stage of the process. They're even adding interviews to their calendar and their team's calendars too. They block time out for every stage, from reviewing CVs of the team, giving the feedback and scheduling interviews. So from the start of the application process, the candidate knows when they can expect feedback and when interviews will be as well. So they can already clear time in their diary should they be invited to interview. By sticking to those agreed deadlines, they always have a really smooth process. There's a positive experience for candidates and it doesn't eat into the rest of their day too. If you let it, recruitment can become a full-time job. That's for me and Abby to look after. But when you've got your day job to do as well, sticking to that allocated time will help you keep that right balance. Think as well about your interview process and the number of stages you have, and reducing this to one stage only where possible. If there are multiple people who need to meet with the candidates, I recommend having them all involved at that same stage. Assessments and tasks can also be a great way to help screen applicants in place of a second stage interview. And you could even organise for these to be completed before first stage. This is going to give you all the information needed to base your decisions on by the end of that one stage interview. Consider as well any holidays or non-working days of anyone involved in the recruitment process too. It's basically anything that could slow down the time from that candidate's application to the next stage of the process could cost you the right candidate right now. So again, by incorporating this into that planning at that first stage, it's going to give you the best opportunity not to miss out on the right candidates. Eve, have we had any questions in so far?
Hi, Vix. So we did a webinar, as you guys know, yesterday due to the popularity on this subject. And we had a really good question that came up yesterday from our clients, which I wonder if you might go through that again, Vix, because you just briefly touched on it now. The client asked, if you have a lot of people that you're recruiting for, and you're looking to do an assessment day rather than online assessments, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was a great question. Abby,
Yeah.
you answered that one really well yesterday, so I'll let you do it again.
Yeah, no worries. So we had a round of interviews the other week, and we did an assessment day, and it worked really, really well. I'd say with that one, it's just to make sure, if we had quite a large pool of candidates and they're all graduates, so it's just to make sure that maybe if you have an assessment day, maybe have two and book as many people as you can in them, and have it like over a week, like a Tuesday and a Thursday or something, and always keep the candidates like in communication of when you'll get back to them. So assessment days are definitely advisable, because I think you can, yeah, definitely recruit quite a lot from it, but it's the turnaround time that's the key.
Great, good answer.
Cool.
Fab. So now I'll hand over to Abby for the next in the tips and tricks.
Yeah, thanks, Vix. Morning, everyone. So the next one is, what are your deal breakers? So when you're picturing your ideal candidate, it's always important to have the thought of what your deal breakers are. So what I mean by this is what you could be flexible on, and this would be what we describe as essential and desirable. This is a particular consideration in a candidate short market. By having written down what is essential, these nice to have will enable you to consider other candidates from the start of the process. So I've narrowed this down to think about your deal breakers from the start. So number one, we've got skills and not sector. So with the past 2 years, we've seen many people retraining, entering different job markets. And I bet we all know someone who's just come in the team and has been great at the job, which is from a different sector. So firstly, to consider the skills that are important to you, what are transferable, and this in turn will make your process very inclusive. Number two, so simple really, what can be trained? Do you need someone with a specific experience, whether it be a qualification, I said this wrong yesterday as well, specific CRM, or can this be trained? Is there something else more important to you? Knowing this from the start will prevent you from missing out on candidates you may have not previously considered. Then the third one, has your essential and desirable criteria changed since you last recruited for the role? Make sure you check your job adverts. Does anything need updating? Have you mentioned about your working model? Are you hybrid now? And is it a deal breaker if your candidates live within your area, or are you fully open to remote working? Then number 4, think about the attitude/character traits that are important to you. Who is the superstar in your team or organization, and what is it about them, and what were they like when they first joined you? Don't you agree, Vic?
Oh, definitely. I find a lot of my clients now ask me for another John, for example, when they're hiring a similar role that we've helped with them in the past. And more often than not, the candidates that they've loved are those where we've matched on skills rather than previous sector experience. And I always ask them to think back to what that candidate was like when they joined the business too, because they're going to be different after being in the team however many months or years and having had training or learning on the job. So being able to separate the superstar you have now to what they were like when they were first joined might also help them shine some light on where you can flex and what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we always get like, can we have like someone else in the team or something like that? And it's not always from the same background. So that's good. But also, we have previously sent out to our clients like a handout of how to write a gender neutral job advert, just to ensure your adverts are inclusive and encourage applications from a wider pool of candidates. So please do get in touch at the end of the webinar should you like a copy of this too. Cool. So moving on to what is your unique selling point. So I've spoken to many candidates now. They're looking for more than just a salary. So if anything, the pandemic has shown us when it comes to work is that people are wanting balance and a really healthy work-life balance at that. So this is always a great way to showcase your unique selling points. What makes your company great? This is a good time to update your job descriptions, updating your job boards, and also updating your consultant if you're working with an agency of what you can offer, really. So I've gone through this with my clients, really down to like fruit bowls, a great coffee machine, or just perks you may not see as perks that should be mentioned, just mention them. So I remember when I was 24 and I was working for TripAdvisor, and they had a free vendor machine, and they literally had unlimited Diet Cokes and chocolate, and I really thought I hit the jackpot. So you never know what people are looking out for. I'll go through some other points of where to start with this, as I'm sure not every other employer would be as easily pleased as I was. So the next one is check with your HR department. This will be for like holiday days. Have they changed? We now obviously have an extra one this year for the Jubilee. And then we have things like, what else do you offer? So fruit baskets, cycle to work, wellness days, courses. What are your company values is a huge thing. What is your sustainability policy? What do you do for charity? What impact are you making socially and for the environment? So shout about these from the rooftops. It's certainly about the package you offer. Also, we have quite a lot of candidates now asking for like dog-friendly offices. I mean, that would definitely get my attention. So you'd be surprised what people are looking for nowadays. Then also, lastly, why you are hiring. So always something that is left out on an advert, but it's so important, especially if it's due to someone having a promotion, due to significant growth, winning a grant, or a client just expanding, like in general, really. It's really great to feel like you're entering an exciting time with a really progressive company. So now we've got lastly, knowing your competition. So one of the biggest current trends in hiring candidates at the moment are them getting snapped up by other companies. So knowing your competition and looking into this from the start will make sure you're in the know of what other opportunities the candidates will have out there for them and what your competition is offering, really. So this will allow you to be more realistic about who will be applying for your job and link it back to your deal breakers and where you can flex from the start. So what I would do is search job adverts and LinkedIn as well. As if you're a candidate, just put in your job title, job function, and location and see what other roles are available. Again, skills are not sector. So it's really important to know if another company is hiring the skills you want, what salary they are offering, and what package they're offering too. So also relating this back to skills are not sector, for example, you could be within a professional services recruiting for an admin role at 25k, and then maybe like a construction company maybe hiring also but for the same level, but it could be offering 27k. So understanding your competition when recruiting can be from like a bigger pool than what you thought as your day-to-day competitors really. So I'd always look at the job function as a whole and not just within your sector, as we all know that transferable skills really does make a dynamic environment. Then lastly, if you are working with an agency or even a temporary requirement where myself and Vix usually assists, ask us about the market. Always happy to share what's going on. Nice. So in conclusion, while there are fewer candidates applying for your roles, using a few simple tweaks and tips that have been discussed today will make sure you don't miss out on your favorite candidates. Hopefully you found this really helpful, and now we're open for questions. So has any questions come in?
Thanks, Abby and Victoria. I thought it would be really helpful to go over some of the questions we had come through in yesterday. But also, if anybody in this webinar has any question, like feel free to put them in at the bottom of the Q&A, and we will answer them live this morning. So one of the questions that came in yesterday as well, I don't know if Abby or Vic who wants to answer that, was so what would you do? So you had an interview booked for a candidate, and another application with better experience has come through, but they're actually not able to interview for another week. So would you kind of wait for them, or would you just go ahead, you know what I mean, and see out the interview process with the people you have right now, or would you hold off for that one person for another week to meet them initially?
Yeah. Cool. Shall I answer that one, Vix? I don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. So yeah, I'd probably just like communication is key. So I would speak to the current candidate, keep them in the loop, just make sure they've got nothing else going on. And the new candidate, I would also check to see, you know, if they're interested, what other interviews they've got going on, because I really wouldn't want to miss out on the current candidate for someone that might not actually work out in the long run. So I definitely speak with the candidate I'm interested in but not available straight away. Find out when they're available to start, if they've got any holidays coming up, what they're looking for. And then if I feel like they are a good candidate, maybe I'd ask them, you know, tell them about the current timeline and see, you know, because at the moment we've got Zoom, we've got Teams, maybe they won't be able to meet the client face to face, but we could arrange a phone call. But I'd want to keep the first candidate in the loop as well, so we don't miss out on them. So I think the one furthest away would need to kind of bring their timelines back. If that makes sense.
Thanks, Abby.
Yeah.
And then we had another question, which was, if you're in an organization where you can't compete on salary with other businesses, like what would you do? So, you know, the salaries potentially are tiered or they are graded or whatnot. So it's not really in your control. What could you do to maybe still attract that one candidate that you really want?
This, I think this is where the unique selling points that Abby was just speaking about really comes in. So, and it's really about highlighting and singing about everything that you can offer as a company, whether it's the holidays, what are the benefits, the charity work, all of those things, really considering them, putting them including them in job ads, making sure that they're available for people to see on your website as well, because candidates will look there when they're doing research about companies that they're interested in. And also I'd say asking the candidates, when you're at interview stage, find out what's important to them, because you never know what other people are looking for outside of salary. And it might just be that little thing that when you've been in an organization for a while, you almost forget or take for granted. Oh yeah, we finish early on Fridays, but if we're not telling people, they're not going to know about it. So if you can't compete with salary, there's plenty of other areas that we can, but it's making sure you know them, and then we're singing and shouting about them.
Oh, great.
Agreed.
Thanks, Victoria and Abby. Any questions from anybody in the webinar today? Otherwise, I think we might finish, but now I might just leave it for a second or so to see if anybody has any questions.
I think the grading thing question just asked as well, Eve, I think that's a good one, especially in terms of like, yeah, making sure that they highlight like the hybrid working model, because I think that's the biggest thing at the moment that candidates will take another job for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you guys have seen the stats of that. So the Recruitment and Employment Confederation did a survey at the beginning of the year in regards to what candidates are looking for in an employer. And it's really interesting because I always thought that most candidates would want a hybrid working model, but it actually turns out, according to the survey, that 40% of applicants are looking for office-based roles. Which I still can't fully get my head around it, because I think everybody would want hybrid. But I think it goes back to what Victoria and Abby said, is I think really asking the candidate what it is that they want, because I think sometimes we presume because what we want, that's what the people we hire also want. So I think really finding out what is the motivating factor for moving and what they're looking for is going to be really key, because this is where you might be able to sell yourself back as an organization. If a candidate would prefer hybrid, great, if that's what the organization can offer, but is there desk space for them to be in the office 5 days a week, should they want to? So yeah, just a final thought on that. We had a question coming through here. What sort of notice periods are you experiencing? I don't know if Vicky or Abby want to answer that.
In Bristol, typically a month still. We're not seeing many, unless we're talking to candidates with much more senior positions at the sort of the top end of their career, then some will be on 3 months. But for the majority, still a month for permanent or a week for temporary is standard that we're seeing in, I don't know if London's any different.
Yeah, no, very similar. I think because we predominantly deal with a lot of temporary contracts as well, generally sometimes there isn't a notice needs to be given, but we generally ask for like a week. So yeah, they will kind of stick into that still.
Yeah, okay. And we had another question come through. What is your view on hybrid working conditions? I don't know, Vicky or Abby, any views on that?
I feel like it seems to be working well. I mean, a lot of our clients now are hybrid and our candidates are hybrid. Because we speak with our candidates every 2 weeks, if they are working hybrid, it's all about kind of just keeping in touch with their manager, making sure they're part of the team. But I'm also knowing that them going back onto because we work with lots of universities, going back on campus, our candidates are enjoying that as well. So yeah, I think not really my view, but in terms of, I think it seems to be working well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we're seeing majority of companies now seem to offer hybrid, and certainly it seems to still be a popular request that is coming in from candidates. But I think also now that we're coming to the end of such a long slog of being isolated and working on our own, people are starting to see the benefits of being back in an office again and working with their teams and being with people. And we at Signature, we did hosted a webinar with CRISP, who are a professional development company, end of last year, I can't remember the dates, about how to manage a team when you're working remotely. So we've got handouts from that as well. So if that's helpful to anybody who's watching today, again, just pop a note to myself or Abby at the end, and we can share some of that extra information as well. Yeah,
lovely. I hope we answered this properly. I wasn't quite sure if we hit the right answer to that question, but yeah, whoever answered the question, you're very, very welcome to reach out to Victoria, Abby, or myself, and we'd be happy to go into more details or signpost you to some more information in that sense. But no, I just want to say thank you very much for attending this webinar. As mentioned throughout, if there is a particular handout that you're looking for, so we have how to write a gender neutral job ad that we could provide if that's something that you might find helpful. Like Vic just said as well, it is a guide on how to make the hybrid working model successful from a third-party training provider. So again, happy to share that if somebody would be interested in that. And then thirdly, we've also put together a job order sheet. So when you communicate between HR, maybe a candidate, what you're looking for, there are kind of 8 sections that are really key that will help you go through and kind of in your head structure what it is that you're looking for in a candidate. So again, if that's something that's of interest to you, you're very welcome to reach out. But thank you so much for attending this afternoon. I hope you found it useful. We're always here to help if there's anything in particular, information that you require. And also thank you very much to Victoria and Abby for all the information for sharing the tips this morning. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Bye.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for
Bye-bye.
joining. Bye.